It's February 27th, 2023. This is Roqe. Well, hi there. Welcome to episode 242 of Roqe. The Iranian Foreign Minister is a buffoon. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam Dostan Aziz. Durud bar shoma. The Iranian Foreign Minister is a buffoon, with apologies to buffoons. What else to conclude on this maddening day when the Foreign Minister of Iran, Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, was allowed a platform at the United Nations Human Rights Council for a bellicose, bizarre, bragging bromide of bullshit? Is the word buffoon the correct choice? Clown, jester, fraud, conman, joke, embarrassment? Who knows? What we do know is that the Islamic Republic is broken. Bring on the end, please. And the end of this parade of regime stooges the West likes to appease. To recap, in front of a number of diplomats and delegations from around the world who did not heed the suggestion to walk out when the Iranian rep was to speak, the foreign minister gave a short speech in broken English that was, well, unrelated to reality. Respecting human rights and dignity is a core value for the Islamic Republic, he said, with a straight face. No hint of satire or comedic try. This guy shamelessly committed himself to this epic lie. The Iranian foreign minister is a buffoon. Sorry, is this the same Iran that has been in the middle of a humanitarian crisis for months? The same Iran that has seen kids shot, women tortured, innocent souls detained, and protesters executed? Human rights a core value. What? But it gets better. Caught by a reporter in the hallways who asked his response to all those who've lost their lives in Iran in recent months, the foreign minister duly responded, "No one has been killed." Wait, what? The most conservative reports out of Iran say 600 have been found dead since the beginning of the uprising. What kind of sick dude do you have to be to say, no one has been killed? But maybe the worst part of the buffoonery is the Western diplomats who stayed in the room during the speech and applauded at the end, or that Belgian foreign minister meeting with her murderous Iranian counterpart, or the foreign minister from Scandinavia telling him, "Nice to see you again." Let's repeat this once more to the West. We don't need you to save the Iranian people. We just need you to stop saving this regime. And to Mr. Amir-Abdollahian, congrats on making captain of the buffoonery team. The Islamic Republic is broken economically and environmentally and politically and culturally and morally. Bring on the end, please. And the end to this parade of regime stooges the West likes to appease. Coming up on this new edition of Roqe, athlete and popular blogger Picasso Moin joins us from Istanbul, and Alangoo founder Golshid Mola in LA, plus the Roqe Roundtable. This is Roqe, episode 242. The IRI Foreign Minister is a buffoon. Right, here we go. Another edition of Roqe. I'm here in the studio in Toronto, and we have quorum. We have everybody here. We have, or at least everybody, meaning the four of you.
The team.
Three of us.
Or part of
three of you, the four of us, collectively. Hello, Pega.
Hello.
Hello, Shaya.
Hi,
and hello, KNZ.
Hello.
Our new superstar. I'm going to do a proper introduction to you in a moment, but let me mention that Golshid Mola. Mm-hmm. Am I saying her last name right? It's Mola.
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 Yeah.
I don't want to, because I think I screwed this up last time. Golshid Mola. It doesn't, I don't think that's her name or what she would want it to be. Golshid Mola.
Yes, exactly. M-O-W, imagine M-O-W-L-A.
Mola.
Mola.
But do you, say it.
Golshid Mola.
That's what I said, kind of.
No, you said Molla.
Golshid Akhund. Golshid Mola.
Mola, yeah.
So people who listen to our program will perhaps remember Golshid was on the show a year or so ago. She created this very popular online marketplace called Alangoo, which is... it's kind of a marketplace for Iranian and Middle Eastern designers and artists. It's a very cool tool, really, to find unique pieces, unique ideas. And Alangoo, a lot of people will know about it, has been popular for some time. Golshid is the founder of it and runs Alangoo and has pretty much given the platform over in the last 6 months to the Uprising. And I think almost suspended a bunch of the activity.
Wow.
And if you just go on the Alangoo site and go on the Alangoo Insta, for example, it's all Uprising related. And so she's joining us from the West Coast of the United States coming up. And our friend Picasso Moin, who of course has been on the show 2 or 3 times, he is in Istanbul, and he just attended a major protest in Istanbul, which, as we've learned, is a big deal because not a lot of protests are allowed to happen in Istanbul. And Picasso, as ever, has been very active. One of the things he is arguing lately, I don't know if you've heard this theory, but is that Iran is intentionally devaluing its currency. Have you heard this?
No.
Yeah, because I guess the argument, I have to ask him about it, but his argument is that that facilitates people going to exchange places to try and get exchange for the dollar, et cetera, and that benefits the regime because they run all the exchange places, something like that. Maybe nobody's heard this?
No.
I haven't heard it, and I'd have to really think about that because
I may be making this up. Let's see what Picasso says.
Okay.
But I think that's what I understood from one of the things he's arguing. And he's as ever, he's got such tremendous experience in terms of his own issues with this regime, and he's kind of a controversial figure in some ways. Some people love him, some people don't. It's always a pleasure to talk to him, and always insightful in many ways. So Picasso coming up from Istanbul actually first in just a few moments. But before we get to that, first of all, let me do a proper introduction to KNZ. Khanım KN, Z being the last name. Welcome.
Thank you.
KNZ. I think KNZ is eventually going to become Kenzie.
Kenzie, that sounds good.
Kenzie.
Yeah, Kenzie. Kind of.
But it reminds us.
We had when we started. I don't know if we need to tell that on the air, but when we started the show, in the very, very beginning of Roqe Media, one of the people who helped us build the studio was a guy named Kenzie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we've already had a Kenzie associated with Roqe, but this is a brand new
Kenzie 2.0.
Yeah.
Now
I'll
Kenzie.
take Kenzie. I'll take Kenzie.
KNZ, yeah. Kenzie. Sounds very official. So you are Iranian Canadian.
Yes.
First of all, we love having you on the team. It's only been a
Thank
couple
you.
weeks, but everybody's excited to have you here. You grew up in Tehran, and you moved here to Canada when you were 17, right?
Yes. That's
Which
right.
was
8 years,
8 years
8
ago.
years ago. Yeah.
And you moved here because you wanted to pursue music? Is that what?
Yeah, well, I had plans to move, but I did want to pursue music professionally, and obviously we all know that there's really no future for female artists in Iran. So that was a big personal goal of mine, to come here and be able to do that here.
And your family was supportive,
Yeah. I think
which is amazing.
I proved to them that this is really what I want to do, so they were okay with it by the end.
So people who know music and music schools in North America, or really around the world, will know Berkeley. Not Berkeley in California, but Berkeley, Berklee. Berkeley is one of the top music school destinations anywhere in the world, right, Chaya?
Yes.
And you ended up going to Berkeley, right?
Yes.
Which is amazing, until they kicked you out because you're Iranian, basically.
Exactly. I was there on a student visa, and it was during the travel ban situation that was going on. And I went to reapply for my student visa, and I got rejected, and I had to move back to Toronto.
But it's amazing that you got into that school. It's a testament to how talented you clearly are.
It was actually the only music school I applied to. I was like, I either get into this and I go,
Wow.
or I just don't do it.
And what's the biggest takeaway from what did you most learn from your days in Berkeley?
I think I just learned how talented everyone is, and to just like understand and appreciate everyone's talent and try to find ways to collaborate with them to learn more yourself and grow yourself as an artist.
Right.
I think that was the biggest
It's a terrible
takeaway.
answer. Okay. I learned how talented everybody. Okay, could have gone
I was
to
not
York.
expecting that at all. I thought you were gonna say something like, "Oh wow,
that's
you
wonderful."
Have so
No,
many talented
I know.
artists.
It's a great answer. Way to go. No, I mean, come on. Yeah, I realized of course, everybody's talented.
Yes.
You're at Berkeley. You're being diplomatic and nice. I was looking for something juicier. Wow, I learned that Americans are dog eat dog in the music business, or I don't know. Well, it's nice to have you here. You're a musician, you're a studio engineer, and you're somebody who has an important perspective, both as a woman and as a what are you now? Gen Z?
Yes, I'm a Gen
Wow.
What? I don't even
But
know
the
what
very-
I am.
You're
beginning
Gen.
of it.
I think you're Gen Y.
Why is that?
Well, you're a
okay.
millennial, right?
I honestly
you-
I don't get these categorizations.
It's
Okay.
millennial. I think you're a millennial.
Yeah, you are.
I was born in '88.
It sounds like you
what
don't
does
want to
that-
be. You don't
what
want to
does
be.
that put me in?
I think we're completing the alphabet. If I'm Gen X and you're Y,
There we go.
and KNZ's Z, KNZ,
Yeah.
Gen Z.
Yeah,
There you go. So you have an important perspective to bring along with Super P, for example, on our team from the Gen Z side, but also because you've been in Iran. I mean, you didn't just move here 8 years ago. You've been back and forth a little bit, and
Yes.
you were in Iran when the uprising began, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I was there in September until the end of October last year, so I was there exactly from when it started and was there for about a month and a half into the whole protests.
And what was it? What was that experience like for you? Did you go out on the protests? Because I know you're.
Unfortunately, I didn't. I'm not as brave as everyone else that's fighting there on the streets. But it was an interesting experience. Obviously, everyone is mourning and everyone was extremely sad. Just the vibe of the whole city was completely different from the other times that I'd been there. But I was glad that I was there because I think I got to see what was actually happening. And I think I would have been more nervous and stressed out and just like being here and watching it from outside because you never know what the truth is until you're actually there and you're.
Of course, it's not
you're
over.
talking to
We're
people
talking
that
about it
are
like
there.
it's the past, but
Yeah,
it's still
exactly.
happening. But now from what I know of you, I mean, I know you that you're fervently opposed to this regime. So did you feel guilty that you weren't going out on the streets?
Oh yeah,
You
for
did,
sure.
yeah.
I felt very guilty, but the circumstances. I was personally scared, and but I have friends of mine that were brave enough to go and be on the street with the people. But I would say that when I was coming back here, the only thing that was sort of keeping me hopeful was that I was going to come here and sort of be the voice here because I could go and protest safely here on the streets with the Iranian community.
So coming to Canada was almost like a liberation, in that you could actually speak your mind in a way that you were a little scared to do so in Iran.
Yeah.
Do you, when you're on a demonstration, you've been to a number of them here in Toronto, right? When you go to these demonstrations, do you feel like those of us who are here demonstrating somehow don't understand exactly what's happening in Iran, or does it feel very much in sync with those that your friends who were protesting in Iran?
I think people understand what's going on, and I think that's why we see so many people showing up every time, is because personally being in Iran at the beginning, I couldn't go to the bigger protests because I was there. I wasn't in Toronto. And when we would see the amount of
bigger protests
people,
here?
Yeah, the bigger protests here in Richmond Hill. When we would see people on the news of like international Iranians going out and doing this, it kind of made us feel very hopeful. So I do think that people know exactly what the situation is, and I appreciate them taking advantage of their freedom and going out and being the voice of people that are back home.
By the way, this is sort of a tedious thing to say, but your English is really great.
Thank you.
Was it good before you came to Canada, or is that just in the last few years? Like, you're sitting next to Shaya, and it's like the difference between the way you two speak is notable, and
Yeah, I actually, I've learned, I don't even know how I learned English. It's just through movies and music. I obviously had to correct my grammar a little here and there, but yeah, I knew it before I came. I didn't really have a problem with the language when I moved.
Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool. Actually,
Goes to Berkeley, speaks
yeah, I mean,
amazingly. You know,
the experiences that Nagin's had, I mean, they're incredible.
making us all look bad,
I know.
basically. Yeah.
But I will say, fun fact.
Although, don't ask her what the big takeaway was from Berkeley. She'll just say everybody was talented. And
Well, I mean, it's
had a
true. She
good
wasn't
time.
lying, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I've gotten to know Nagin a little bit over the last little while that
Uh-huh.
she's been here, and Nagin and I actually, our birthdays are one day apart, with the
Yeah.
difference
Wow.
of many years. But
Aren't you Gen Y?
yes,
Yeah,
many many years apart.
Not
but,
many years.
I
But a
mean,
few years. Yeah.
yeah. So I found that out. and
Wow. What
yeah.
what month is that?
December 13th, and then 14th is Nagin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sagittarius.
That's
All
right.
All right. And
So
what are the
two Saggies
implications of being Sagittarius? No, I don't know.
The best, the
best.
absolute
All right.
best.
Most
All right.
adventurous.
Yeah, and they
Oh.
they get along really well with Geminis.
Oh.
So there you go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
And what are you, Shaya? What's your sign?
I'm sorry, Cancer.
Oh. Don't be sorry. I mean, okay.
I don't know.
I don't
The
know
only
either.
reason I know Sagittarius isn't Geminis is because I'm a Sagittarius and my sister's a Gemini.
And you guys get
And
along very well.
Nagin's sister is also a Gemini.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's crazy.
Hmm.
Very similar.
I mean, we've lost all of our listeners at
Yeah,
this
I
point,
know.
but it's interesting.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the four of us, that was an
It was
interesting
very
conversation.
good.
I should also say, in terms of last names and saying, K and Z. So, man, I don't know what it is. We had this event in Toronto, downtown Toronto on the weekend. It was a Roqe Media event. It was, and it turned out really, really nice.
Yeah.
It was a gathering of solidarity and art and performance, and we had some really lovely folks come and donate their time to perform. We had Kurosh Babai, who's this incredible kamancheh player. We had our friends Dang Show, Shaya and Taha were there, Banafshe Tahirian, Soli, the legend, our own Anahita and Anu Head did some dancing, and we had the art of Nagme Jah. She's done the art of the Uprising. She's been on the show. But one of the highlights, of course, was Sabah,
Yes.
who for some reason, I'm a fan. She's been on the show twice. I can't get her last name right. So I introduced her, and I was like,
remember that.
I gave this big introduction, how amazing she is, and this is, we're so honored. And this is Sabah. And I remember there's an E that I'm supposed to say, the E, so I go, this is Sabah Zamani. No, I said Namozi. What did I say?
started from the Nizami.
Nezami. Nezami.
And then Nazemi.
And they're like, I say Sabah Nezami, and then everybody's like, no, that's not the right. And so I thought, I put the vowel, So then I was like, Namozi.
There's a couple of tries there, yeah.
It took, yeah. And then Zameni.
Zameni.
See, I can't still. And I'm such a fan of hers, and she was amazing at our
she was.
at our event. But so sorry, my apologies to Sabah Zameni.
Yes.
Correct.
I don't even know where I got Namozi.
Nezami.
Nezami is a.
He's a famous poet.
I really did say, I said 4 different names
Yeah.
before I got completely different names. Yeah. Before I got to, and then people were kindly saying, maybe you should just use first names. Like I'm an idiot, like I've been freaking broadcasting for years.
Oh
I think it's better that you just use first names. Oh, okay. But it was a lovely event, and yeah. K and Z was there. I asked her, what did she think? What was the big takeaway? She said, there was a lot of talented people. And she learned
I'm
that
not
there's
lying.
talented people. Yeah. Let's get to, before we get to Picasso and Golshid Mola, let's get to some of what's happening. So obviously I did this opening essay about the foreign minister of Iran and some of his ridiculousness. But I guess the big news of the day is this, for those of us in the Iranian community around the world, is this UNHRC meeting, the Human Rights Commission? Council. This had been circled on the calendar for a while because there had been a campaign for people, to say, do not give this guy any oxygen, this Iranian foreign minister, because he was scheduled to speak, and it was sort of how is it possible that you're giving a platform to this person for the United Nations Human Rights Council. So the campaign was, please walk out. How effective was it? Do we know?
I don't think we have any specific numbers just yet because, I mean, this just happened hours. I mean, I don't know how many hours exactly, but hours ago. So we don't have exact numbers, but there was a significant amount of individuals who actually walked out. I know that there were I know there were 47 member states who were actually present, along with, their delegations, individuals from NGOs, all sorts of representatives. So we don't know exactly who it was that walked out or from what countries, but we saw a large number of people leave the conference when he started talking. A couple of familiar faces. So we saw Ali Akhundi leave, a couple of reporters and such that have been circulating in the last 5-6 months, but names are to be released and countries are to be released as well. But I think what was also interesting since then is hearing the reporters speak to Hossein Amir-Abdollahian and ask him questions following his speech and asking him about the recent killings of protesters and Mahsa Amini to be specific. And his response was just...
His response is... everything he said was madness.
I listened to his speech, first of all, and he spoke in English, which was surprising.
What do you think that was about? I thought it was curious that he spoke in English because he would clearly, I'm guessing, be more commanding and confident in Persian. So it was obviously a tactical decision, but his English is not...
No, I mean,
it's no KNZ English, that's for sure.
I had so much trouble understanding him. He butchered so many of the words. He lost his place a couple of times, actually, which we've seen happen many times to representatives of the Islamic Republic when they're speaking at the UN. But I mean, everything that he said was ridiculous. He took it as an opportunity to call out the UN and basically say that, no country is perfect when it comes to human rights, and that the UN is acting as a place for individuals to, or not individuals, but countries, I guess, to villainize the Islamic Republic almost. And nothing that he said made any sense.
Well, it's not wrong that there's hypocrisy with the UN.
Yeah. But for the Islamic Republic to be coming and say that, I mean, I think that's just ridiculous. And then just going back to when reporters asked him about Mahsa Amini, he said that respecting human rights and dignity is a core value of the Islamic Republic.
Yes, I have the quote. Yeah.
And that human rights bodies, including UNHRC, have turned into an instrument of foreign policy, and that no country can claim its human rights record is perfect.
Yeah, what did you make of him speaking in English?
I think that all the governors in Iran, they don't understand that. If he's speaking English, they don't understand. But I think he does it for Iranian governors, actually, to show them that I can speak English. So let me play more in the.
I see. But I'm a strong ambassador for the country because I can speak English.
But I don't know.
Well, and so this was happening at the same time. It's pretty garish. This guy speaking and the whole spectacle of it. It's not even the United Nations. You remember Ahmadinejad speaking at the United Nations and all that. It's the United Nations Human Rights Council. A core value of the Islam. I mean, it's actually laughable.
It
right?
is.
It's actually truly laughable.
Absolutely ridiculous. More laughable, actually, to add to all this, is that he's also supposed to speak at another conference this coming Tuesday. And get ready for this. That's the UN Conference on Disarmament. So that's the next conference that he's speaking at. I mean, just one after the other.
Yeah, he's on tour. Yeah.
And the same campaign is running for that as well, by the way. They're asking individuals to walk out when he begins speaking. So
this happened in terms of just what's lighting up the Persian social media. This, I would say, this is the number one thing, but it happens also at the same time. There's this campaign, walk out, don't give this guy time, don't give him the respect of sitting in the room while he's speaking. At the same time, we're seeing these images of the Belgian foreign minister, who is a woman who, from what I understand, from what we remember, early in the uprising, so like in October or something, actually cut her hair, demonstrating her solidarity with Iranian women when a lot of people were doing that. Now we see footage of her walking in to a meeting cordially with this Iranian foreign minister, and of course that's incensing a lot of folks who kind of thought, weren't you on our team? You're now showing the respect and giving an audience to this murderer, right?
I mean, definitely a lot of outrage amongst Iranians for sure, and I think rightly so. It's so hypocritical to, on one hand, back in October in the early days, stand on a public forum and show that solidarity and take such a, I think it was a big action to take. It was a really symbolic move to stand there in front of thousands of Iranians and cut your hair, and it was so emotional, and everyone felt so happy to have someone from Belgium, for example, support them in that way. And then now she walks in and she's having this friendly conversation, and the photos, I mean, they just look like a bunch of happy pals standing around. There's reports that she actually met with and I don't know, is it Amir-Abdollahian or Abdollahian? I'm not sure which his last name is.
Yeah, so what's do you know this, because his name is Hossein Amir-Abdollahian, right?
Yes, his last name is Amir-Abdollahian.
Is Amir is part of the last name? It's not his middle name.
No.
He's not Hossein.
No.
He's not HAA.
No.
Right, okay, yeah.
So she met with Amir-Abdollahian, and some reports are saying it was to discuss a political prisoner by the name of Olivier Vandicastille, if I'm saying that correctly. We don't know if that's necessarily what they talked about. There's reports from Islamic Republic state media that have said that this was an opportunity for her to pay her respect and give condolences because of the earthquake in Hoi. But really what it was all about and why she met with them, it's unknown.
I mean, there's two things that come to mind. First of all, we're now acquainted with the fact that many countries around the world and their diplomats and their leaders still want to play ball with this regime.
That's right.
Some more actively and openly so than others, but we know that there's still an appetite for negotiations of a nuclear deal and kind of engaging and enabling this regime. And so maybe that's what's going on here. A more innocent reading, I don't know if it's possible, but I would say that the ground has really shifted for the Iranian community. We've talked about this a little bit, right? Where the global Iranian community, like we all are, one way that we're pretty much unified, perhaps some reformists on their last breath still hoping for engagement accepted, but we're pretty much unified that you don't deal with this regime. You don't platform this regime. You don't, because they've proven over and over and over and over again that there's nothing to be gained from that.
That's right.
So our policy, I mean, think about even from a media standpoint, it wasn't too long ago that somebody could make an argument, I think a fair argument, to say, I would interview this person from the Islamic Republic to hear what they have to say and to challenge them. That ship has sailed. Nobody wants to see representatives of the Islamic Republic platformed on major media, because we already know it's all hogwash, it's bullshit, and it's time for the end. I feel like there's been a long time debate in international diplomatic circles about whether engagement is the right thing to do or non-engagement. Right? This is you hear this for years in the United States. Should the president meet with this tin pot dictator or not? Is it better when we engage with them and know the enemy and all of that? And so there's potentially some kind of argument that they're convincing themselves of, that it's important for us to still meet with this foreign minister and maintain relations so that we can do prisoner exchanges and know what they're up to and all of that. But for for the community around the world who knows better, like I say, that ship has sailed. So if this is some kind of innocent attempt to, I don't know, make a play for, how to find out more about this regime or something like that, it's not working.
I mean, even that, I don't know if any foreign representatives could actually say that, because there's been so many different examples against that. Even someone like this Belgian foreign minister, to talk about even a prisoner exchange. I understand the value for someone like the Belgian foreign minister, but in the midst of a revolution?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
If the timing was different, maybe if this was 8
you
months
can't
ago,
imagine. Look, our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, if you recall, he met with Zarif 3 or 4 years. I don't know, it was longer ago, 5 or 6 years ago, and it was a very controversial meeting because not only was he meeting with Zarif, but he was smiling and he kind of did a bow, right. And that incensed a lot of people in the Iranian community. What are you doing, Justin Trudeau? Like, but that is not something that Justin Trudeau would do today.
That's
right. He would know this is not, that option is not open to
exactly.
to the optics of that option are not something that we want to see.
Yeah. When I see these international government like states that how they deal with Iran, it really makes me in one hand you see China and Russia, they completely خوابیدن, lay over Iran, and they don't let Iran to breathe. And also coming back to the point that you said, Picasso think that the currency will, it kind of makes sense if China would invest in Iran and suddenly the economic get better in Iran. So I mean, you never know.
I didn't understand that point.
Imagine from next year, China starts the 25 years contract.
Yes,
Iran,
the deal, yeah.
And in 1 year, the economy gets better.
They boost the economy.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the people say, thank China, and I can kind of imagine that happening.
Yeah, it's not inconceivable.
No.
But also, I mean, I was trying to give my different versions of what's happening here. But really, the simplest read of this Belgian foreign minister is we've seen so many different derivations of this, including President Biden and various diplomats and celebrities and whatever, and governments, Macron, who will say one thing, we believe in human rights, you shouldn't be killing kids and women and this, but when the chips are down, when it's time to actually and preferably not when the cameras are on.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to be regretting the fact that footage is everywhere now. But they still want to work with this regime. And we've talked about this every week. It gets sad. It gets dispiriting because all of the evidence is, hedging their bets, kind of going, well, we think the regime can stay. And by the way, it's better for us if the regime stays. We make more money off this. Yeah, some people are going to be killed and going to be a suppressed country of people, but what do we care? I mean, that's how can we conclude anything else from Hadia Labib, who is the Belgian foreign minister, Labib Nazemi.
No.
Zamani. No, I know. I'm commenting on my last name skills. The other thing that I saw the last couple of days that was incredibly dispiriting, perhaps not surprising, but ominous, is the poisoning of schoolgirls.
Young schoolgirls. I mean, 13, 14 years old.
So if somebody isn't following this on social media, what would they need to know?
So there were random, or what seemed to be random, incidents of young girls being poisoned at schools.
In Iran.
In Iran, yeah. This started as early as November. And then the most recent incident, I think, was just a couple of weeks ago, early February, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of this was taking place in schools in Qom, although it was happening across other cities as well. And the girls were just presenting with similar symptoms. They were all saying that they had smelt kind of a fruity smell in the school and then had gotten sick. Many of them had been hospitalized. And it was just this unknown situation for many, many months. And then earlier today, the Minister of Education actually admitted to some foul play. Now, he didn't say what that meant, really. He just said that there were individuals involved who maybe had a hand in this, maybe it was deliberate, and the reasoning for it is because they didn't want the schools to remain open. So a lot of individuals are saying, this is another barbaric act on the part of the Islamic Republic to squash this women-led revolution that's taking place by stopping young girls from attending schools.
It's so fucked up that the regime didn't even deny it.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Kanzi. I mean, you were a schoolgirl, in Iran a decade ago. So, what do you feel or think when you hear about this?
It's just so sad that they basically are kind of saying that it might have been deliberate. They're not denying it. Also, there are things that they're saying about girls, sort of them being against girls actually attending school as well. So girls shouldn't go to school, what we see is happening in Afghanistan as well. But I do think it sort of plays into both those narratives of, firstly, girls shouldn't go to school, and secondly, girls have been such a big voice, schoolgirls especially have been such a big voice in this revolution, that's also a way to take them out of the equation, kind of.
Would that be why one of the epicenters of this would be Qom, which is a very religious city? So it's almost the Taliban-esque notion of what girls should and shouldn't be allowed to do. Yeah,
for sure. I think that has a big thing to do with it, is that probably people with those kind of ideologies are more concentrated in those kinds of cities that are more religious than the rest of the thing
that comes to mind, as soon as I read this image that kind of popped in my head, was, I think it was a couple of months back, where we saw the young girls holding hands in a school yard singing Baraye, and just the thought of that image, and to think that the girls that young were being targeted and being poisoned. I mean, it's just.
It's so macabre, though. Yeah. It's so macabre. First of all, let's poison our own, ostensibly our own. I mean, we don't, let's poison the Iranian people. And then to do it to young girls and to the students, it's again, horror movie kind of stuff. Yeah. That you almost, if somebody gave me that script, I would go, well, this is not really realistic. There's not, it's quite terrifying.
Crosses so many lines on so many different levels. And like you said, I mean, even in fiction, you wouldn't think.
Well, in fiction, you would definitely at least have the dictator deny it, Instead of going, well, there may have been some foul play. I mean, this is a message we're sending,
The funny thing is that, just a couple hours ago, I've heard that now they announced that, no, it's not only schoolgirl. It's for boys.
Right. We're equal opportunity murderers. Yeah.
Because that makes it so much better.
Finally, I wanted to mention little Pirouz. I mean, who will speak for Pirouz? Hopefully a lot of people. I was going to do my opening essay about Pirouz, the last of the Asiatic cheetahs, our beloved cheetah, who is in some health trouble now. He was born less than a year ago, right?
Yeah, May 1st,
and he's the last of these cheetahs, and there's so much speculation about whether this animal that like many other animals in Iran is suffering because of the Islamic Republic. That's certainly the social media version of this. But I was going to just do an ode to Pirouz as my opening essay, but I didn't do it today because right now, today, I mean, by the time you're hearing this, you guys out there, this might be, we might have learned a lot more, but right now he's in surgery, or he's been in surgery this afternoon.
Dialysis,
yeah. Maybe it's not surgery. If it's dialysis, yeah. So, and we don't know how Pirouz is going to react to this, and whether he's going to regain his health or something sadder than that. But so I felt like it would be an inopportune time to do the essay about Pirouz. But do you want to explain to tell us anything more about him for people who are not yet familiar with our little hero?
I mean, you mentioned that he's one of the last of his kind, essentially.
I think he is the last. Yeah.
So this type of cheetah is critically endangered, and he's really the last hope. And in so many ways, he's become a symbol, because not only is he the last hope for his species, he's also become a symbol of hope for Iranians in the midst of this ongoing revolution. So I think that's why so many people who may have not regularly been such animal lovers and advocates and things like that are kind of hoping for the best for Pirouz as well, because he is really a sign of hope. But I did want to mention one other thing. There's something circulating on social media, and I just saw this earlier today, about an Iranian-Canadian entrepreneur and philanthropist by the name of Alex Haditaghi, I believe, who's actually offered to assist financially, if need be, to arrange for Pirouz to be taken to, a zoo or some sort of a care center or something like that to ensure his safety. And I think, that's, again, it's another sign of how the diaspora has come together in the midst of this revolution, where every single thing, whether it be humans, animals, an ideology, whatever it may be, everyone's kind of pulling together.
That's a good point. Like 8 months ago, we would have probably heard about Pirouz, some environmental activist or animal lover or something. Would have been this the situation, but the global Iranian community wouldn't be galvanized to try and do something or talk about him.
Yeah.
برای پیروز و احتمال انقراض.
That was a big part of it, right?
Yes.
We learned about Pirouz from Shervin's song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, Pirouz, Pirouz is like my little Oogie, The picture we see of Pirouz, is from when he was a real little baby. And he's not that young anymore. No. And now you see him, you're like, oh, it's like, there's a real cheetah,
No
he's like
little Pirouz.
Yeah, Pirouz. I mean, Godspeed, Pirouz, but I mean, we should do a whole episode focused on what the plight of animals have been in the last. It makes me very, very sad when it comes to dogs, but I obviously it's not just dogs that suffer in the current situation in Iran.
Yeah, and generally the environment crisis, because I mean,
it's connected, interconnected. We are coming to you on roqemedia.com. It is there that you can link to all of our platforms. We are on this ongoing mission to build a new audio-visual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. You can find us on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on Apple Podcasts, on Instagram, on CastBox. If you like to see some visuals with Roqe, you can switch over to YouTube and also see our documentary series there at Roqe Media on YouTube. And if you like your descriptions of bulletins in English and in Persian, check us out on Telegram, and you can support what you hear on this program, especially if you're a regular listener of ours. We know there's followers around the world. We really appreciate you becoming a Roqe member by going to our Patreon page. And there's a bronze and silver and gold membership, and it's very, very simple. You just become basically a subscriber to us, and you pay a small monthly fee, and you help us do what we do. We crowdsource. That's the way we stay alive. So thank you to all of our Roqe members. And today, a special shout out to Nazanin Am. How do I say this?
I don't know. I think that might be a middle initial or name or something.
Nazanin Zamani Namazi.
Nazami.
Nazanin Afshari is her last name, who has just become a Roqe member at the bronze level on Patreon. Thank you so much, Nazanin. And again, if you go to roqemedia.com and go to the support us button, roqemedia.com, that is where you can link to our Patreon page and become a Roqe member, and we'll get you some special benefits to becoming a bronze, silver, or gold Roqe member. Thank you for those of you who have done so at our Patreon. Thank you, KNZ. Thank you, Shaya. Thank you, Pega. Let's get to our first guest. I think he's waiting in Istanbul. And here we go. My first guest is an Iranian kickboxing champion, entrepreneur, and blogger, Ahmad Moin Shirazi, better known as Picasso Moin. has won a number of titles in the world of kickboxing, but he has more significantly come to public attention because of his active and popular presence on social media. Picasso and his wife, Shabnam, were an influencer couple in Iran with more than 1 million followers on Instagram, letting people in on their daily lives. Before they incurred the wrath of the regime, they were charged, convicted, and sentenced to a total of 16 years in prison by the Revolutionary Court in Iran for posting, quote-unquote, propaganda against the regime and for spreading alleged moral corruption through their Instagram accounts. They were forced to escape Iran for good, of course. In self-exile in Turkey, Picasso has continued to raise awareness about the current revolution in Iran and attended rallies and demonstrations. And you would have seen him in our Istanbul documentary this fall called The Revolution from the Backyard of Iran and Right Now. Picasso Moin joins me from Istanbul. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jian, and hello, everybody who is listening or probably watching. Thank you for the very nice intro. Well, I would love to keep hearing myself, somebody talking about me like that. And so, yeah, that's very much me. And actually, you make it sound terrific. And
it's the short
beautiful
version. I mean, there's a much more involved, longer version.
Thank you very much.
I just went right through all your championships and all of that.
That was terrific. Thank you.
It's nice to see you. Nice to have you back on the program. And
it's nice to be here.
Where we last left off, I mean, I saw you in person in Istanbul in late October, basically in the middle of at that point, if this revolution has its peaks and valleys, that was certainly a peak at that point in terms of demonstrations, global activity, a lot of activity inside Iran, kids being killed. All of that was happening at its peak at that moment. Maybe just to start off in general terms, because I know you talk about this almost every day on your social media videos, and you're in touch with a lot of people inside Iran. How are you processing where we are at this with this revolution today, right now?
Well, I got these feelings actually, which I know for fact, I can feel it, that the next wave or next waves are on the way. And you can feel that the tension, among the people inside the country and how things are going on.
The next waves of what?
Of revolution, protests on the streets, precisely on the streets of every major city in Iran, or even I'm not even only major cities, just like as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that the people will soon be back on the streets because look what's going on. What's happening? Things gone worse, way worse than they used to be. Dollar is like going up, real is on a free fall, and nothing is promising. And
you're not somebody, based on what you're saying right now, it sounds like you're not somebody who believes that the lessened activity in the streets, be it because it's winter, be it because people have been terrified because of the executions, be it for people that are exhausted, whatever it is, you are not somebody who believes that means that the revolution has lost momentum.
Oh no. Well, you see, actually, it is not like every other year there is a revolution happening somewhere around the world. So that, it's not a fashion. So we say that all the revolutions are like that, or the other one was like this and the other one was like that. So you really can't have a very precise analysis of the things. But I'm sure that all the revolutions, they have had their ups and downs, and it's always on a different patterns. And I know for a fact that streets will be full again very soon. And
how do you know that for a fact?
You see, it is very clear that, how sad it might sound, the next Mahsa is somewhere around here in the corner waiting. Or you see, look at right now what's happening with the schools, girls' schools, and things happening right now with the dollars, things happening right now with kidnapping and torturing in Zahedan, in Kurdistan. Things are not well.
Yes.
And people are very unhappy.
but the poisoning. I mean, we Picasso John. We just talked about this on our roundtable. I mean, the poisoning is, first of all, it's macabre and disgusting. But it's amazing that the regime is not even denying it.
They tried. No, they hell they tried. I mean, this is the 21st or 22nd school in a row. At the beginning, they kept denying it. They kept saying, no, it is nothing. Once they said it was gas leaking. The other times were like carbon dioxide. The other time they said, I don't know, it was like the teachers, they tried to, I don't know, like disinfect the area or get rid of the bugs or whatever. And now, after 22 schools been affected, and not only in city of Qom, now, okay, they had to say something.
Okay, imagine how threatened you have to be as a regime to feel the compulsion to poison schoolgirls. I mean, this is not dropping bombs on a munitions factory somewhere, a tactical response to a threat. This is literally going after the Iranian people and some of the most vulnerable. Think about how threatened, how on the run this regime must be.
You see, I need to come up with a little explanation here. And when we're talking about the regime, it might be a bit slightly different than when we talk about a regime in some developed country or any other countries. I mean, when we talk about regime, we're not talking about a single body as a whole. We are talking about hundreds of units, organizations, people, families, I don't know, like companies, groups, parties, which everyone has its own agenda. They are all on the same road, almost going the same direction, almost. And when you are from far away, you see a regime.
But don't the orders come from the top?
Well, actually, the supreme leader is being surrounded by so many people, and indirectly, they are able to put him in positions to get out of his mouth what they want. There must be a group of wackos who believes that probably, let's say, the girls should not be in school. Why? Because this is anti-Islamic or whatever. And maybe they have got a guru, some ahund sitting somewhere talking about stuff like that. And these guys pick the idea up by themselves and they say, oh, you know what? We need to be revolutionary. We need to take actions. And they will act on their own. And this is actually so fucked up that even Khamenei used to, like, somehow has encouraged it. The word Jush or something like that, like if the people act within themselves just based on their feelings and the responsibility or whatever, so they just believe, maybe they think that this is the right thing to do for God, for Islam, for whatever reason. And I'm sure if they find out, if they catch them, we will never know about it until they're gone.
So to sum up, it's not just a suppressed, repressed, and draconian totalitarian society. It's also a chaotic one where a number of tiers of this Sepah are taking things under their own hands.
Oh yes.
But the problem with that analysis, the part that is confusing for me is we also hear people saying, this regime, these fuckers, they've been at this for 44 years. They're very smart. They're very wise. They're very sly. They know what to do. They know how to keep the people down. That, when people say that implies that there's some kind of Orwellian Big Brother where they really do know exactly what's going on. It doesn't.
Are they?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
I don't think so. It is always like every other third world country. I mean, every other third world country, it is always based on people, on persons, on personalities. If they got somebody smart enough in TV, like they had in Hashtag, the TV in Iran somehow played a major role in the green movement, and like putting it down, because they just tried. I mean, they tried tricks on other people, like they brought Imam Hussein and Ashura and this and that, and they lied and they showed Iranian flag being burned, banks, this, that, and then that guy left office, and the next guy comes and he's been doing the whole same story. Just, I mean, every time that anything like that happens again. But this doesn't work every time. So sometimes they have smart people in the right place for themselves, of course, I'm talking, and they do right things. And sometimes, which actually most of times, they have wrong people in the wrong positions and they fuck up things, just like they always have done. Imagine what happened with Mahsa. If they had a little bit of brain, they could have come up with an idea and come and apologize, and I don't know, like fire 2 officers or put one in jail and calm people down. What did they do? They come up with denial till today, and that caused the revolution.
I want to ask you about I brought up earlier in the show that you've got a thought about or something to say about the dire state of the currency in Iran. Yeah, the
dollar.
But before we get there, just on this notion of the narrative and the lies and what this regime does and says, today was kind of a big day, depending on how you want to see it, a dark day in that the United Nations Human Rights Council gave a platform to the Iranian Foreign Minister to speak. I don't know if you saw him speak or heard anything about it, but he said some incredibly outlandish things that, I joke, I have a chuckle in my throat because it's so ridiculous, it's comical. But I started the show talking about the insanity of this man getting up there and saying not one person has been killed and human rights are the core value of the Islamic Republic. What do you make of this person going and saying these things? I'm guessing you're not surprised, but how do you see the actions of today?
Do you remember when the Americans and British attacked Saddam the last time?
Yes, I think I do.
They had a guy, a general, who was the Ministry of Propaganda, something like that. And every day he used to come on TV and CNN, sit down. I used to watch on CNN. There were like tons of other news. And he always used to say things which none of them was actually even remotely close to what was happening in the real world.
Are we talking about from the Iraqi government or from the American government?
Yeah, from the Iraqi government.
Okay.
I have heard that as he was giving up his last statement, I've heard that the American soldiers entered the room and they asked him to, "Sir, would you stand up and put your hands behind your head?" And he still was lying and he was still saying things like that. And what else?
It's an interesting analogy. You're saying a commander, as the ship is going down, is trying to sell propaganda that all is well. I mean, there's no, yes, we're going through difficult times. We're going to figure them out. I mean, it's just
that was before when they still had hope. That was the time of the other guy, Zarif. Yeah. Well, Zarif, in the time of Zarif, they still, the government, they were not so shaky like that. And he still was trying. And they were so close to make it. This guy, it's a fucking joke. He just comes in, he says nonsense, and he leaves. And what makes me wonder is that there were still people sitting there watching and clapping. And of course, everybody knows the truth. The thing is that they are there because probably they've been promised something.
Well, that's the other story of today. Thank you for going there, because the other story was, and I was going to ask you about what you think of the international reaction. I mean, you're sitting in Turkey where you forever get mixed messages from the leadership in Turkey for all kinds of reasons, as we know. But I mean, part of the story today was the Belgian foreign minister, the the same woman who had been seen cutting her hair in solidarity with Iranian women, meeting with the Iranian Foreign Minister, which was an incredible affront to all of those tireless activists who've been saying, do not engage with this regime anymore, let alone to do it on video in front of the world. What we've been talking about in our roundtable just before we brought you on here is how, I was saying this is just the indication that the West ultimately still seems to be hedging its bets. It says one thing, these people come out and the human rights, we care about Iran, but when the chips come down, they're interested in engagement with and continuing to enable this Islamic Republic for now, or wait for the revolution, this one, to fail somehow.
Jian, when things have been different? When? I believe never. You see, they're actually there. They're there to play their role and try to work for the benefit of their country. And then, of course, after that, they might think about other stuff. I mean, many times when they come up and show some support for people in Iran, it is to just, to just get a better pose for the camera, and of course to satisfy their publics.
Amongst the people in Iran are the religious people in Iran. And something, when I've seen a couple of your late night talks, one of the things that you've been doing is addressing clergy and religious people. I mean, you come from that, in terms of your own family. You've been addressing those people in Iran who do watch you on social media and imploring them to speak out against the regime. Tell me about that.
You see, well, anything happening in Iran right now is in the name of religion. Which, honestly, actually, asking me, it has nothing to do with religion. The thing is that you're using everything. They're using religion. They're using whatever they can in order to achieve their goals. And there are actually people who truly believe in that religion. And everybody demands that if you see the misuse of religion, then come up and say something, Otherwise, I clearly said to every mullah, every akhund in my video that you need to take off your clothes right now, at least out of respect for people, because you can see, that what's been going on and what people are doing with this uniform or whatever it is, which, well, actually, I never get it. But now you need to somehow take it out. Take it out and say that just out of respect for people, for the time being, we're not going to dress up as a mullah, because look what they're doing in name of religion. The first person in the country has been a mullah. The second one has been a mullah. The third one has been a mullah. Every major organization in the country is run by a mullah. And then there are mullahs who are not political, these grand ayatollahs who actually rule the country and socially. And whatever they do is being followed by people.
And the country is an economic, political, cultural, moral disaster.
In every way. Morally, economically.
But do you actually believe any of these mullahs are gonna heed your advice?
Should I tell you that I received a couple of messages which I actually decided not to post them, and some wrote me and they said that you don't know us. You don't know me, and of course I thought about what you said. And I've taken off my what do you call ammame, and I'm going to be a regular person, which we actually are. This is what 2 or 3 people told me that, and I felt very compelled. It's like wow, I was very impressed.
Yeah, you feel like you're having some impact.
Would do, yeah. Not everybody did it, of course, but at least 2 or 3 wrote me. I know for a fact. I'm not sure if they did it, but the thing is that you need to say it. People need to come out. At the beginning, I was against this Ammame Paroni. But then I thought about it and I said, like, it is actually an act. It is like a performance.
Sorry, is that when they knock off the turban? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. You need to show them. You need to show them that you're really angry with this.
Do you believe? I want to ask you about the Istanbul protests as well. There's a growing list of things I want to get to. Just before we go there, though, let me just ask you this: since you're addressing mullahs and religious people in Iran, and since you do have an audience that you hear from in Iran, I like to ask this of people who are inside Iran when we do our Voices from Inside Iran series. But I should ask you as well, because I feel like you got a sense of things. You know, there was that survey that came out, I guess about a month ago. Gamon, this Belgian service, I think it was that did a survey of in as much as you can trust, polling of Iranians inside Iran, but it showed that there was over 80% support for ending this regime, and that the regime support was around 15%. It was interesting that last week when we had one of these Voices from Inside Iran, a financial analyst who was enraged, and I said, do you think that's possible, that the regime support is as low as 15%? And he said, no, that's not possible. It's much lower. Tell me your sense of who actually at this stage still supports this regime inside Iran.
So those people who are supporting, some of them, or the majority of them, are those who have their interests. They are being paid by the government. Their family, they work there. They've been living in Khanhai Sazmani, who was like offered to them by the government, and this and that.
By the way, this guy I was talking about said even some of those people don't support the regime.
Put them aside, because we're talking about people supporting them right now. So there are other people who are really not certain about things, because they've been talking about separatists, and about Iranian patriotism. Sure. And people have been like, so the moment you talk about separation of any state from Iran, people go like, wow, no, we would rather keep the Akhuns rather than losing Iran as it is right now. And they are always trying to heat up people against each other, like Sultanate against.
Sure.
And there are people who are then somehow sitting and saying that, you know what, we still have a roof which is cracking, but there is a roof above our head. What if we get rid of it and we can't replace it? So they feel hesitant, Otherwise, there are those people who are directly being profited, by this government and regime, which are not actually many. So otherwise, if you go and talk to a minister in Iran before this revolution, if you would have the chance to go and talk to a top dog, somebody important in the government, even they were not happy with the situation and things happening in Iran. Nobody is happy with how Iran is being ruled. Nobody. What is to like? What is there to like?
People already kind of know who you are, but how? So maybe those who oppose you wouldn't work their way into your late night talks or your Instagram lives and things like that. And I'm going to ask you about some of your haters, but in a moment. But how often do you encounter somebody who is actively defending the regime openly using their real name?
Oh, the only time that people come with their real names are some people in my direct messages. Nobody dares to come and talk. There are people who come and defend the regime, but they're all with fake identities and IDs. And that's why I'm not sure if they're actual people or they're just this cyber army, whatever it is. Yeah. There could be one person with 5 different accounts, but I have not seen a single person who dares to come, because there is actually nothing to defend. Even these guys who come and defend the Islamic Republic, they just, I don't know, they're bullshitting. I mean, they're not saying anything. I mean, which makes sense.
They're a paid army.
Yeah.
So okay. So let me get to a couple of these things, and that first of all, this question of the currency, because I'm really curious to learn from you on this, or what your thought is that the Iranian government, the regime, is, I mean, because we've heard so much about the economy being in free fall, the devaluation of the currency, the skyrocketing inflation. You believe that some of this is intentional from the regime?
Yeah. Okay. What is intentional? I would say inevitable, because they intentionally do that because they have no other way out.
Why did they intentionally do it?
Okay. Why? Since the government started, I mean, the regime, Islamic Republic, none of these guys who've been ruling the country were prepared, educated, or in the position to run a country. So the difference between Pahlavi and Jumhuriya Islami is lack of knowledge. You see, they didn't know what to do.
One of the differences, but yes, yeah.
One of them. They had so much money, they didn't know what to do with it, although there were more things to do with it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So they had lots of money, but they had even more expenses to cover, which they didn't know about. So what they started to do bullshitting, like rubbish. They supported that terrorist group or the other group, or they tried to somehow export the revolution and doing this and that. And then they realized, okay, and then war happened, and they didn't know what to do, how to do it, and they practically fucked up everything. So the banks started losing liquidity and were short of money. If the people would go to the bank, everybody together, and demand their money, they didn't have the people money to, like, to pay them. So what they did, they used to go to the central bank in Iran, because this is actually central bank's duty to, to pay the debts of the other banks, the government banks. So they had to pay, and they had no cash either. So what was the best thing to do? Take the money from the people and pay it back to them. You see, the distributor of dollar in the country is the government. Nobody is allowed to sell dollars in Iran. I'm talking about large amounts.
Sure.
You see how the dollar comes in the country? Well, first of all, we sell oil. This is how we survive. Who is selling the oil? The government. So who is getting the money? The government. Who is bringing it back? The government. And who is distributing that dollar in the market? The government. Also, there are other people who do also export, because if you're doing anything within Iran, you're not being paid by dollars.
Right.
So dollar must come through export. So they export goods out of Iran, but when they get paid, they cannot bring the money just like that and spend it. No. They have to do it through a channel which central banks has provided.
Okay.
So still, the government is controlling all the dollars coming inside the country. So they decide.
But you're not saying that the government wants to do this. You're saying that they're doing this out of necessity. Right? Yes. And because also you could make the argument that this economic disarray, this deep shit that the economy is in, is not going to help you win the hearts of the people. Right? I mean, this is part of what's enabling the revolution.
Yeah. You see, these are actually unwritten protocols in Islamic Republic. You can't, whenever you cannot get the money, where do you get the money from? From people.
Right. I
We
got
just
you.
go back to the people,
I got you.
get the money from them, and that is called inflation. They get the money from people, paid back. Nothing has happened. People are gone.
I'm gonna press to be
poor.
continued on this part of the conversation because I want to talk more about this with you, and you know, you're gonna have to come back, and because I've got a lot of questions about that and about what you just said. But let me before I've got to let you go soon, so I want to ask you two things. First of all, when I was in Turkey there for 2 weeks and doing the documentary, and I saw you and we talked, and it was obviously very clearly apparent, and I spoke to a number of people who underscored this, that it's very difficult to protest in Turkey. It's very difficult to exercise any dissent, getting permission. Even when you get permission, the police are coming after you. It's a hostile environment for any kind of dissent. Are they allowing these protests now?
Well, the police have been very cooperative. The only thing they don't do, they don't give us a permission in writing, but they always give us a verbal permission. And they come there, they stand there to protect us. Although 3 policemen documents the whole thing with camera, which that's a little bit, I don't know, whatever. This is what they do. And they've been very cooperative. For example, this Sunday, we decided not to do it, and we decided to shift it for 8th of March, which is the International Women's Day.
Mm-hmm.
They also accepted, agreed to that. And we've been there, but beside that, there are many other people who come with their cameras and take everybody's picture, and that makes many people nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why not so many people come. Many people write me and say, "Oh, we would love to come, but we want to go back to Iran." And I know that many bloggers, influencers that have been asking them to put the poster of this every Sunday's movement there. Now, when they've gone to the consulate in Istanbul, they denied to offer them any counseling services or consul services, and they have said that your name is on a list now.
Right.
What you need to do is to make a video and say that, okay, it was my bad, I did a mistake or whatever, and then come and I'll renew your passport.
Wow. How are you dealing with that? I mean, you're remarkably fearless. I know that there's been like you've been attacked by trolls, and like whether it's the cyber army or hired guns, or I don't know. And I know you're used to that. You've gotten that, but I mean, you're extremely popular. But then you have these haters that go after you online, and one of the things they you know, they come at you and say, you know, where were you guys in Alban? You know, now you're so outspoken.
You see, this is bullshit. Of course, we were there in Alban. We were there in Alban. You see, if they go on my highlights, they can see the stories we posted. And in Alban, the thing is that nobody had the internet in Iran. So any news we got out, we reflected it. And in Alban, we were there as well. And we've been actually quite active. I don't care about those haters or the people who are wrong about us. But
I know you're notoriously never scared. I mean, you amaze me. You're sitting there in Istanbul and you're so outspoken, but and you really are. You, both of you guys, you and Shabnam, are these pillars of strength, I think, for what you do in terms of how open and outspoken you are. When others, you say, won't even, you know, turn up at a demonstration because they're scared for their faces, which is their, you know, it's legitimate, these things. So my question is, where are you at when you get all of these warnings or people chirping at you?
Well, I need to add that we don't want to go back to Iran. Those people who maybe are afraid to show up, sometimes they do want to go, but they have the chance to go back and see their families. They have business in Iran. They have things. We have lost everything in Iran. I've lost all the business I've built, and they say to get بالاتر از سیاهی که رنگی نیست دیگه. I mean, we're gone there. We've been there, and that's why I know that I'm not going back to Iran. Whatever happens, I don't need to go to the Iranian embassy. So the only thing is the actual threat that somebody might come and do us harm, which whenever we see these people in Zahedan every Friday,
yeah,
and they've been shot on the streets.
Right on, brother.
They still been, yeah, that's how the things are there.
Yeah.
And they still do come. And this is the least we could do. Seriously.
That is perfectly said. And but when you say you never want to go back to Iran, you're not including when Iran is free and you and I have a tea somewhere
No. I
in
mean,
Tehran.
right now. I mean, right now, we know for a fact that we are not going back. So, yeah, that's the thing.
Picasso, it's I always appreciate your perspective. I always think, I mean, you're such a unique guy, and you have such a unique voice, and I think you really do a service to a lot of the folks out there who depend on you for a bunch of information and to feel inspired, and you guys lead by example and you put yourselves out there. And
thank you very much.
As ever, I thank you for coming on.
I thank you for the great job you're doing, the awareness you're making. And I follow every video you post on YouTube. I like them all and watch them. And you're very inspiring yourself. Thank you very much for all the services. And looking forward to see you soon.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Bye-bye. This is Roqe, episode 242. The IRI Foreign Minister is a buffoon. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Remember, for all things Roqe related, you can go to our website, roqemedia.com, where you can find our Patreon page as well, roqemedia.com. My next guest is an Iranian-American entrepreneur and creative. Golshid Mola is the founder and director of Alangoo, an online platform that creates a connection between designers and consumers with the intention of supporting independent artists and designers from Iran and from the Middle East in general. Golshid was born and raised in Tehran. In the early 2000s, she moved to New York, where she received her master's in graphic communications management and technology. Since the beginning of the current revolution in Iran, Alangoo has given over its significant platform to only sharing artworks that are inspired by the current freedom movement for Iran. And right now, Golshid Mola joins me from Los Angeles. Hello.
Hi, Jian. How are you?
I'm well. I thank you for doing this. It's nice to see you again. Nice to talk to you again. I hear you're a bit under the weather, so I appreciate you doing this.
Sure. Yeah, I got this, that's common flu that's been happening to everybody.
You're a trooper. Thanks for still doing the interview. Listen, let me start by asking you the obvious question, since I haven't spoken to you. We haven't had you on the show since the uprising began. How was your life emotionally and I suppose literally affected by the aftermath of the killing of Mahsa Amini in the last few months?
Yeah, to be honest with you, my life changed because I am pregnant. I was pregnant during this whole time, and it was not good. I was extremely emotional, crying every day, a few times a day. It was a challenging time for me. So my doctors, she told me that, you have to stop at some point. This is not really good for the baby or for you as a pregnant woman at this age. Because, our child at my age, they call it a golden child. So we have to be extra careful. But it was just not possible. I mean, how could you just be, just not checking the social media, just not following the news? It wasn't possible. So it was a really tough time for me. It still is. But right now we have a little hope. Maybe something is happening. So it's been better recently.
When you were crying in those first months, you obviously were not alone. All of us were.
Yeah.
As a woman who grew up in Iran, with the dynamics of this particular uprising and the strength of it, led by women, led by youth, led by young girls and boys. Tell me what, if you can tap into those emotions, what was most making you cry, if you will?
It's just seeing your people on the street and, all these youth getting killed and blinded. And it obviously, I was reminded of myself when I was growing up in Iran. And I remember that every day I was going to my parents, like, how come nobody's doing anything? Why aren't you guys out on the street? How come your friends are just sitting home living regular life? I remember that I was also talking to my friends about this when I was in college. Like, don't we have to do something? Don't we have to just say something? It was all weird for me growing up in Iran that we were just so silent. So the fact that this finally happened, it was really, it also made me very happy that finally we're doing something. Finally, people are reacting to this whole thing. But it was just a very emotional time, because I used to be one of them living in Iran. I experienced that lifestyle and that pressure. So it was just extra emotional maybe for me. I don't know.
A lot has been said about the bravery of the new generation now in Iran that those of us of older generations perhaps didn't have, as much as we wanted things to change. Can you reflect on that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's what I'm saying. This bravery finally got out. I was expecting something like this, honestly, like 20 years ago. With my generation, we are the generation. I was born during that Dahe Fajr, with the arrival of Khomeini. So it was really amazing to see how brave they're. At the same time, super scary. I mean, I was scared watching them out on the street because we know this government. We know what they can do to people, and they did. At the same time, that it was really amazing to see all this, courageous young people out. It was also extremely scary for me to watch. Just thinking how they can just catch them, how they can execute them, how which they did. It could have been much worse, I think. Scary and exciting at the same time.
Golshid, let me ask you about Alangoo, because this has been a thriving, popular platform. I remember before the first time we had you on the show, I was familiarizing myself with Alangoo, and anybody I'd say the name of it to, they'd go, "Of course, this is a household name that people knew." So it's all the more impressive or powerful that you clearly made a decision at some point to pause the regular activity of Alangoo and to, as I said in the introduction, give that platform over to the cause of the uprising. Tell me about what went into that decision and whether it was a difficult one for you.
No, it was like a no-brainer. I just knew that I had to stop. In a situation like this, you cannot just promote selling things. And I would be surprised if people actually would come to Alangoo and buy things. I would be like, what? You're buying a piece of jewelry at this point? So I did it with pleasure. It was my duty to do that. It was everyone's duty to do that. But again, at the same time, we are also responsible for the artisans and designers that we present. But if people in Iran were going through this, everybody was affected. All these online businesses, all the designers, all the artisans were affected living in Iran because of the Instagram ban and internet ban. So why not me? If they're going through it, I can go through it, because we had to just stick together. We had to be one voice. But, after some time, after a few months, you realize that you also have to do your job, which is giving voice to those same designers who, Iranian designers who live, all over the world. So we decided to, move on a little with the, regular work that we did. But still, the main focus remains on what's happening in Iran.
I mean, when you say it's obvious, it's not. It is. You're very generous, or I appreciate the integrity behind saying that. But it is a funny thing that I would put sort of online sales folks in the Iranian community in the category of artists and a lot of other people who were expected to change their careers, affect their lives during this period, and still are to a certain extent. Whereas, for example, no one's telling an engineer to stop being an engineer or a dentist to stop being a dentist or to do all of their work for free because of for the uprising. So it does feel like it's a bit of a double standard as to who has to take the responsibility and who doesn't. Were there voices in your life saying, hey, no, this is your career, this is your job, don't do this?
No, first of all, anybody with online presence has to take action. And dentist in his office doesn't have that online, presence to do things. If he does, he has to. And at the same time, certain like an engineer or a physician, these are things that people need on daily basis, but people don't need to buy jewelry on daily basis. First of all the events were canceled. Nobody was doing anything, obviously. So there was really also there was no point to expect people to come and shop from you. It's different from when you offer a service, which I do also offer a service as well to designers. It's complicated, but I decided immediately that this has to stop. And I was also very surprised to see some other online businesses that just didn't care.
Yeah.
They just moved on, not doing anything, not saying anything. After like maybe a month or two, they decided to just, say something small about it, on the side. And I was not really happy about that. It was disturbing.
Did you have any pushback from any of your regular clientele, or was anybody saying, I don't come to Alangoo for political statements or any of that, or was everybody basically on side?
Mostly they were on side, yes. There are actually some followers who don't really like to see negative content. And they would tell me, Alangoo is a happy place. But, it is what it is. I had to do what I had to do. But mainly everybody was supportive of and appreciative of, stopping all the promotions.
So I saw your posts more recently, like very recent, that reflect, I think, a lot of what a lot of folks are going through. I mean, we've been talking about it here. We stopped all our advertising and any sponsors or anything like that for Roqe in this period, and then realized, oh, well, that was our business model. Now we're 6 months in and, we're trying to crowdsource. But so how are you navigating the idea of, I saw a post you had written saying, we want to be able to continue to support designers and artists and unique folks out there who our platform has been for. How far will you go in that direction still, and how much is it important to still use the platform for the causes of the uprising?
I think we shouldn't stop at all. The main focus of the platform should be focusing on the uprising, but at the same time, it's Nowruz now. And Nowruz is very important to me. No matter what happens to us globally, this is our culture. The culture is always number one. I'm not going to just disregard the coming of Nowruz because of the uprising, because I really believe that we have to keep the culture alive. So Nowruz is an exception. Yalda is an exception. But Yalda was, right in the middle. And Nowruz is major.
Meaning you're okay with big galas and stuff for Nowruz?
No. I'm just talking about what we do for Alangoo. Like I am going to, introduce Nowruz related items on Alangoo. Recommend things for AD, recommend things for half scene. On Alangoo, you can find many like half scene sets that are handmade by designers. So these are not things that we're not going to show. Obviously, I'm going to promote them because, again, the culture needs to stay strong. So no matter what, we have to respect Nowruz. That's what I think.
What is your personal position on big fancy parties for Nowruz?
Respecting the festival, respecting Nowruz is different from partying. You get together, you celebrate, you sit around your half scene. You read your poem, you pray, but it's different from like bringing a DJ and just party all night. Although even if people do that, I'd rather not do it at my house.
Right.
Although I did have a baby shower as well. But again, there was no dancing, there was no partying. There was just, getting together, celebrating my baby. I mean, I'm 44 and I'm pregnant. So again, it's not something that I just ignore.
No, I think that's fantastic. I think we need to be allowed to gather, surely.
Yeah, exactly.
So, before I let you go, let me ask you a little bit about what you've observed from the community. I mean, you're in Los Angeles now. You were, of course, famously, I believe, a very New York kind of person. We talked about this last time. Now you've relocated to Los Angeles. I think you've been out on some of those demonstrations in Los Angeles. And what can you speak to in terms of, as somebody who's been at the center of the Iranian community in a certain way, as somebody who creates a service for Iranians, what have you noticed about the community over the last 6 months?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really appreciative of anybody, any Iranian or non-Iranian who goes out. Really, thank you guys so much for going out. That's very important. I would be way more active if I were not pregnant. But, I didn't go to the major ones because of that, but I did go to many of them. It's beautiful to see Iranians sticking together. It's really sad when I see that they get into like nonsense arguments, stupid arguments over really not important things. I hope that, we can fix that within our culture, to be more open to each other's different ideas and don't lose focus, screaming at each other for something that's not even important at this time can damage the whole, revolution. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I'm very impressed with all Iranians across the globe.
Are you hopeful these days? I mean, there's it's not there's not as much activity as there was in September and October, but there's a different kind of activity now, and there's a lot happening on the international stage. What is your feeling now?
Definitely. It's not that this revolution is happening, and people are doing amazing. There are a lot of people in our community are doing great things for this uprising. Although they're not out on the street, things are happening. I am hopeful. I think that this revolution is over. Honestly, it's not going to last for a really long time. It's not possible. I really don't think it's possible. But again, at the same time, a lot of time I lose hope. I don't know.
Sorry, when you say the revolution is over, meaning that the regime is going to be...
Yeah.
I see.
Sorry. Right. This regime.
Right. I was like, is it? I thought we were still... Okay, yeah.
No.
Well, it's great to talk to you again. I'm do I say congratulations, I guess? When is the little one due?
Yeah, I think she's coming sometime around Nowruz. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's a new day in a lot of ways for Golshid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, wishing you a safe and healthy journey on this new path, and thank you for the work you've been doing with Alangoo as ever. And it's nice to see you again.
Thank you, Jian, and thank you for what you do. Focusing on this uprising, talking to people. Thank you for that.
Merci. Take care of yourself.
You too.
It's Golshid Mola in Los Angeles, and this is full time for Roqe for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, for all things Roqe related, go to our website, roqemedia.com, roqemedia.com, where you can also figure out how to support us there by pressing the Support Us button, funny enough. And you can become a Roqe member. Just join a subscription at the Patreon page. Go from the Support Us button. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Roham, KNZ, Talented Anahita, Super Parisa, Smart Pega, Alay Mertan, and Groovy Shaya. Thank you to all of you out there supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you've not done so already. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, always heed these words. Wait for it. Here it comes. Mizun Bashin. So it was a little hot there.